valuation presentation by Jamie,
Tom and Matt.
To start off with, we're going to take you through the process which we've been through to get to where we are today.
Next we have the prelim task. The prelim task was our task to film a character opening a door, crossing a room and exchanging a few lines of dialogue with other characters. And here is a few screenshots from our prelim.
Next we had our research and planning phase. Here we researched similar products to our own, helping us to understand the potentials of what we could really achieve.
Here we have our animatic. This is where we produced a animatic storyboard as a guide to our thriller opening, and here are some more screenshots.
Then we had our filming day.
And following this was our first cut.
We also filmed our class's feedback to our first cut. This was useful as it made a good basis for us to edit our second cut. It helped us to address all of the problems with the original cuts. This eventually led to our final cut where all the problems had been addressed and we had a good media product.
We're going to kickstart this presentation off with a comparison of our opening film to Dead Man's Shoes. Dead Man's Shoes, like our film, is a thriller set in an isolated area. This challenges the conventions of thriller film. It was produced by Warp Film. This is a company that helps independent films. The film itself was directed by Shane Meadows. If we were to create our film, we would also use a company like Warp Films, as it will be an independent film. Here at the bottom of the screen you can see a screenshot of the opening of our film, and at the top is a screenshot of the opening of Dead Man's Shoes.
One of the most important things for us was the location. We felt that setting it in a field in broad daylight was a contrast to the normal conventions of thriller, as it's a nice day and it's a place you generally associate with safety and peace and quiet, but we want to create this idea of isolation and a breach of security, i.e. with the gates banging and being open, because it's like the security of the normally nice local area has been breached. And we thought this was, we felt it was important not to conform to the normal thriller conventions. In comparison to another film, Dead Man's Shoes also attempts to create this feeling with two of the main characters walking across a field. In sticking to the idea of isolation, we want to show abandonment, like an absence of people in the area. So for example, in Dead Man's Shoes, there's like the tyre and the dilapidated farmhouse, and with ours there is the banging gate.
Now we move on to the titles, which is quite key in the opening of the film. We decided to go with this typewriter font as it's quite corporate and it links closely to the businessman, or less formally known, the gunman. We kept this font consistent all the way through the titles to not cause confusion, and we chose the colour red as it represents danger or blood.
We chose to use a Mini Cooper as we found that it fitted the thriller conventions. We found that it was quite similar to the gunman's personality, as it's fast, agile and businesslike. We chose to have our character, the gunman, in a suit. This was to show that the character was businesslike and showed that he was also upper class. We chose to use a gun as it sticks to the thriller conventions of being more modern compared to a horror film. In a horror film, the killer would more likely use a personal weapon such as a knife. Film ratings over the last few years have become more lenient, and as ours uses adult themes, we've decided to give it the rating of 12/12A. A film with a higher rating of say 15 would mean that it would be stronger language, stronger violence, portrayals of sexual activities, strong verbal references to sex, sexual nudity, or references to sexual violence. There would also be discriminative language or behaviour, or things such as drug taking, and something that a rating of 18 would take this to a higher level.
Hi, I'm Tom, and I just thought I'd go a bit more in depth about why we chose thriller instead of horror. Well, thriller films over the past few years have gained a certain amount of hype, as it were. A lot of the top rating films in the box office and highest grossing films have been thrillers. An example of a thriller film gaining a certain amount of hype and exposure and doing well at the box office is Kick-Ass, which was #1 at the box office on April 18th, 2010, and it grossed $19,828,687 in the US. Next one up from that is The Town. That was #1 at the box office at September 19th, which grossed $23,808,032. Again, that's a good, really good example of a thriller film making a large amount of money, and probably the most well-known and renowned one of recent times is Inception, which was #1 for a consistently long period, but the last recorded date I found was July 11th, 2010, and that grossed $62,785,337. And as you can see from I think the figures speak for themselves, that thriller is far, far from a dead genre, and I felt it was a good choice for us to make a media film of the thriller genre. As part of our viral marketing campaign, we created a Facebook page for the main character. As you can see, it's a picture of me and the character's name, Joe Moore. As you can see from the comments on the page, it hints at events that will be happening in the film. This is an interesting way of establishing the character as a real person, but also to gain early audience interest from the target audience, which will be Facebook users, for example, young people. We felt this was a really good example of synergy, as it's a great way to show different aspects of media working together to achieve one end, which is obviously the promotion of the film. So we have the cross-media convergence of the film and the characters and the story, the narrative we're trying to create, but also bringing it and anchoring it in the real world by creating this Facebook page. We were actually going to create it as a group where various people who are interested in the film can join and follow the comments of the character, which will hint at events that will happen in the film. I mean, as you can see here, there is a list of the character's viewpoints, the music that the character likes. Again, creating this personality and a character that the audience can either empathise with or choose not to follow. Again, it's literature. We also wanted to show how various aspects of the character's personality will reflect themes of the story. Again, this is a great way to attract and address our audience. Showing the character's likes and dislikes will help to attract the audience and address them, as they will maybe share the same viewpoints or ideologies as this made-up character. Another important thing to note here is the films the characters are interested in. These double up as films that have inspired us to create The Gunman.
Here we're going to talk you through the changes that we have made from the first cut to the final cut.
Originally, we had a over-the-shoulder shot which was zooming in, but this looked too much like a still image, and the character looked unnaturally still.
So for the final cut, what we've done is we've alternated between two characters over-the-shoulder shots. This helps to build tension and looks more natural.
Originally, we used these red and white titles as we thought they were modern and smart, quite like the gunman himself.
But after further analysis and some feedback, we decided to keep the titles consistent by using the same red font as the gunman.
Originally, in our first cut, we had this shot where it zoomed into the gunman, but we found that it went so far in that you could see the gunman's identity, and this is something that we didn't want to reveal until later on in the film.
So we decided to stop the zoom just before you could make out his facial features to keep his identity hidden. Here's another shot that we've had to change. Originally here you can see the gunman's identity by the back of his head and he turns around.
So as you can see, using the same shot, we have just cropped the top so you can't see his head, which hides his identity. Here is a shot from our first piece that did not make it into the final cut. We found that the shot is quite jolty, and we found a shot that we preferred, where the camera pans upwards and the light is more central, kind of symbolising going into the light, e.g. death, and it pans all the way up to the sky, symbolising heaven.
I like to shoot camera shots the way that I like it, the way that from Tom's perspective when we see the guy that
on like the hip.
yeah, I really like that over your shoulder. I like all the different camera shots that you've used and the editing, perfect. Music again, brilliant. I love that juxtaposition of like quite high beat and then the moody. Very good.
Alright, the sound was absolutely brilliant because there was two different kinds of sound, wasn't there? Which distinguished the characters and their roles, especially. Like the upbeat tempo of the gunman, which shows that he's sort of a businessman, and maybe he knows what he's doing.
He does.
Whereas it contradicts the other.
Tom's acting, top notch.
Okay, since his intro, where would you go from there? Just wondering.
We go into the city.
Like,
that's like where the businessman's like from, because like Tom's now dead, unfortunately.
Yeah, I could.
Yes, it was a thriller.
Yeah, it was really tense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely, because there were kind of sound effects that made you jump, but it wasn't all gory or anything like a horror.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, it seemed to kind of build to a point about a guy who's obviously been attacked and who's in some trouble.
Opening.
Trailer.
It looked like an opening because there wasn't any titles.
It looked more like an opening.
I think an opening, because it was all in chronological order and it did just build to a point rather than kind of flicking across a storyline, which a trailer would do.
Yeah. Yeah. It
The
did.
piano
and the music helped create suspense.
Yeah. Yeah, very much so.
Oh, I think so, because when he realised something, it would make you jump, as he would be doing, and yeah, it just created a good kind of confused and on-edge atmosphere.
No, it was all put together really well.
No, it all went with the flow.
They didn't disrupt it in a bad sense, I don't think. The only one that disrupted the flow was when he realised and saw the guy with the gun and you got a shot of his eyes, but I think that was quite effective.